Welcome to episode 9 of Directed by Steven Spielberg. Today we will be reviewing and analysing the 1985 period drama, The Color Purple. This film was a massive departure from anything that Spielberg had produced to this point in his career, which to this point had been summer blockbusters. It's an extremely sensitive subject matter, dealing with a young African American girl and the brutal experiences that she endures throughout 20th century USA. This was my first time watching The Color Purple, and I definitely have some thoughts on the film, so let's dive in to discuss. The Color Purple is a poignant drama set in the early 20th century American South. The story follows Celie, an African American woman who endures a life of abuse and hardship. Celie suffers through forced incest by her father, in which she gives birth to 2 children, and then later by her abusive husband, Albert. She is separated from her beloved sister Nettie throughout the course of the film, which acts as her main motivation throughout the film. Celie's journey is one of profound personal growth and resilience. She finds solace and strength through the relationship she forms with other women, particularly Sophia, a strong-willed and defiant woman married to Albert's son, and Shug Avery, a glamorous and independent singer who becomes Celie's confidant and lover. These bonds help Celie gain the confidence to stand up for herself and ultimately achieve independence and self-worth. The film explores themes of racial and gender oppression, the power of female solidarity, and the redemptive nature of love and forgiveness. Whoopi Goldberg delivers a powerful performance as Celie, supported by an impressive cast including Oprah Winfrey as Sophia and Danny Glover as Albert. So what did I think of the film? I thought it was genuinely engaging, and I found myself constantly trying to put myself in the shoes of some of the main characters to imagine how I would deal with their various difficult circumstances. Perhaps the aspect of the film I was engaged with the most was Celie's constant observations of her surroundings and the people that come and go from her life. She plays a fly on the wall to others' experiences as she largely stays out of drama for her own survival. I found this fascinating to watch, as it was almost like she was living vicariously through others and just observing them making horrible decisions in real time, and sometimes even seeing the mistakes they're going to make before they happen. We watch films to put ourselves in the shoes of our favorite characters, but this took it to a whole other level. The Color Purple was easily Spielberg's most serious film at this point in his career. Whilst I knew how good some of his later dramas were, I was curious to see how he would fare in his first attempt at serious subject matter. I'm happy to report that he did a remarkable job of portraying the experience of African American women in early 20th century Southern USA. You genuinely feel the claustrophobia of the situation that Celie and others experience, how they are so trapped by their circumstances with not a single ray of light on the horizon. Whilst the subject matter of The Color Purple was vastly different to anything Spielberg had previously worked with, the film still has many of the classic Spielberg hallmarks that make it visually familiar to his previous filmography. The opening scene has a brief moment of concealment, with the hands of Celie's father prying the baby from hers. It's a small touch, but it does add more weight to the moment, showing the utter cruelty of the situation. Shadows and silhouettes are used throughout the film to convey various tones. At times it's used to evoke the innocence of the young girls, whilst at others to show the menace of the less kind characters. A few sunset shots as well to reflect that shred of hope that Celie holds onto in her dreams of reuniting with her sister. The simultaneous foreground and background shot is also used to great effect in some scenes. In this shot, you can see young Celie peering through the foggy window, looking on at Albert as he asks to marry her sister Nettie. This technique is used to convey the curious side of Celie's character, something that would be built on throughout the film. But like most dramas, it is the individual performances that determine their success, and The Color Purple has a number of great performances. Starting off is Whoopi Goldberg in the main role of Celie. She brings a delicate touch to her performance, creating genuine sympathy and care for Celie as we watch her suffer constantly. Oprah Winfrey was great as Sophia, the tough-talking wife of Harpo. I was particularly impressed by her performance, considering it was her first acting performance at the time. But Danny Glover as Albert to me was the standout, embodying that role of the abusive husband to perfection. No matter how horrific his actions are throughout the film, it is well understood that they're very much the product of how he was raised and how he's still very much a little boy trying to follow his dad's word. And to see his son Harpo grow up to reluctantly follow his dad's lead with this abusive behavior towards Sophia is truly heartbreaking, as it makes you think about how many generations it can take to break the cycle of abuse. So overall, the performances were fantastic, and it's no wonder 3 of the cast received Oscar nominations for their efforts. As I said earlier, The Color Purple is very much about the life of Celie and the lens that she provides into the world of the characters around her. And from each character she learns different things. From Sophia, she learns the consequences of acting tough as an African American woman in early 20th century USA. From Shug, she remembers what it feels like to be loved. Even Albert's oppression of her forces her to gain confidence and eventually leave him. Which brings me to some of my criticisms of the film. There's a scene towards the end of the film where Celie finally stands up to Albert and tells him off for everything he's done to her. It is a pretty triumphant moment, which results in her finally walking out despite Albert's best efforts to keep her. Despite waiting for this moment to occur, it does feel kind of forced and rushed, as there's no real lead up to the scene in terms of Celie becoming more rebellious or anything like that. It just sort of happens, and whilst it's a great scene in isolation, it just kind of feels out of nowhere as well. The other small issue I have with the film is the very ending, where Albert ultimately does a good deed for the first time in helping Nettie get her immigration papers sorted so that she can reunite with Celie. Don't get me wrong, it is a touching act, but the film treats it almost as though all is forgiven for him doing so. I personally wasn't ready to let him off the hook like that. Not saying the film does, but again, it's another thing that just feels a little rushed and unearned. But all in all, I would say The Color Purple was a very successful venture into the drama genre for Steven Spielberg and showed the potential he has for storytelling with more serious subject matter. So there you have it, another episode of Directed by Steven Spielberg in the books. This has been a slightly shorter analysis than my other videos in this series, but I think that all that needs to be said has been said. The film is clear-cut, well executed, and accomplishes what it sets out to do. The film is a great addition to the genre, and you can truly see the influence it still holds to this day, particularly with films like 12 Years a Slave and others. This was a very solid film on all fronts, and for that I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, placing it below Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in 6th place. For episode 10, we have another period drama to watch, and that is the 1987 coming-of-age war film Empire of the Sun, starring a very young Christian Bale. This is another film that I have yet to see in Spielberg's filmography, but I've heard some very good things about it, and so I'm looking forward to covering it. Until then, I thank you all very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.